Is this you? No matter how competent you are at work, it still feels like you are one mistake away from being exposed. In general, maybe you double-check emails 3 times or more. You over-prepare for meetings, you say yes to projects even when you are already overwhelmed, only to midway start doubting yourself and your abilities and competency. And when someone compliments you, part of you thinks, if they really knew me, they would realize that I'm not that impressive. You tend to discount your efforts. So instead of feeling proud, you just work harder, and not because you are ambitious, but because your nervous system feels like your worth is always being evaluated. You see, if you grew up feeling emotionally neglected and not validated enough, then this pattern makes complete sense, because the skills that helped you survive your childhood often become the very habits that exhaust you in your career and as an adult. Today, we are going to unpack why parentified daughters and adult children of dysfunctional families often become high-functioning perfectionists at work and in life in general, and yet secretly feel like imposters. Hi, I'm Karina Aybar, psychotherapist and coach, and I make videos about setting boundaries without guilt, emotional regulation, parentification, and trauma recovery, so that you can understand why you feel the way you do and how to change it with compassion and practical tools. By the end of this video, my hope is that you will understand why imposter syndrome is so common for people who were parentified and grew up in dysfunction, how over-responsibility in childhood turns into career perfectionism, what is happening neurologically, somatically, when you feel like you need to prove yourself, and some practical tools to help your nervous system finally experience being good enough instead of constantly earning your worth. And if this is resonating with you, make sure to check out my Parentification playlist, where we explore these patterns even more deeply on a weekly basis. Now let's begin by discussing the hidden link between parentification and career perfectionism. One thing I see constantly in my therapy practice, in my coaching practice, is this pattern. The child who had to grow up too fast becomes the adult who can never relax. They can never relax at work and in relationships, in everyday life. They struggle with being still. And let's say you were the responsible one growing up and you were praised for being such a mature child. You were probably in charge of mediating arguments, or you were relied on, or you helped raise your siblings. You learned to read everyone's moods and every room, and you became the emotional support system of the family. On the outside, people praised you. Wow, you are so mature. You are such a strong child. You are such a responsible person. But internally, something else was happening. You learned, my value comes from being useful, and not from simply existing, from performing, from fixing. I am only accepted when I am able to help others, when I don't make mistakes, when I am able to just take on more roles and do it well. In fact, you may think that you have to do it perfectly. So when you enter the workplace as an adult, those same survival strategies show up, except that now they look like over-preparing, over-delivering, overcompensating, overthinking, overworking, and more often than not, I witness my clients and members being underpaid for all the work that they do. And because these behaviors are rewarded professionally, no one questions them. They just call you driven. They just call you highly reliable. In fact, you may climb up to becoming a wonderful leader, but underneath, you are exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out. So why do you feel an imposter syndrome even when you are competent? Let's talk about imposter syndrome, because many people assume imposter syndrome means I don't believe in myself. But for parentified adults and adult children of dysfunction, it is something deeper. It is not just self-doubt, it is nervous system conditioning. So when you grow up in an environment where love or approval felt conditional. Your brain learns something very important about safety. Safety comes from meeting expectations. And the moment you stop performing, you see, that is the moment that your brain anticipates rejection. That is the moment that your brain anticipates that people will truly see you and not accept you for who you are. And neurologically, this involves several systems. Again, the amygdala, I keep mentioning, but your threat detection system. The amygdala is constantly scanning for social threats. For a parentified adult, mistakes often meant you should have known better. There is a lot of criticism. There is emotional withdrawal, someone becoming overwhelmed, or conflict in the household, and people expecting you to behave ahead of your age. So your brain associates imperfection with danger and failure and a character flaw. Even if logically, you know, let's say your boss isn't your parent, right? You know that, but your nervous system still reacts like, if I mess this up, something bad will happen. So you overcompensate, and you often are at the mercy of whatever people may say to you. Not because you are weak, but because you attribute a lot of power to the way that you are being perceived. I want to again emphasize that this is not out of being superficial or being weak-minded. To the contrary, you are very resilient and strong, and I'm sure you have heard that. But what I mean is that, unfortunately, because you did not receive enough validation, you are constantly seeking approval from people that do not deserve that much power. Let's talk about the prefrontal cortex, overthinking, in parentified adults and adult children of dysfunction. Because that is where we often, as parentified adults, we become extremely cognitively skilled. You learned to analyze situations quickly. How will this person react? How can I prevent this conflict? What's the safest response? And this becomes hyper-analysis in adulthood, which looks like replaying conversations in your head, overthinking emails, second-guessing decisions, etc. And not because you are incompetent, but because your brain was trained to anticipate problems before they can arise, before they happen. So think about it this way. Your nervous system is very busy, and there is also a somatic component. Many parentified adults and adult children of dysfunction operate in chronic sympathetic activation. This is what we call fight or flight. The internal urgency feels like constant pressure. Even if no one is saying anything or expecting that of you or hasn't said it, you have difficulty resting, and anxiety shows up when things slow down. So when work is calm, your nervous system interprets it as something must be wrong, or are they going to fire me? Am I doing everything I'm supposed to? Which leads to creating more work for you or more pressure, even when no one is demanding that of you. So just to feel regulated again, you are consistently scanning for what to do in order to get ahead. You are always 10, 50 steps ahead, honestly. So why rest feels so uncomfortable for parentified and adult children of dysfunction? Let's talk about that, because that confuses many high achievers. Why does rest feel so hard? You might tell yourself, once I finish this project, I will relax. But when the moment arrives, you check your email again. You start another task. You find something else to improve, because rest isn't just physical, it is psychological. That is why you may find yourself with a lot of headaches or feeling so drained and your eyes just this burning sensation, and you're like, but I've been sitting all day. But psychologically, your mind is overworking. For many parentified adults, rest triggers this deep internal question. If I am not useful, do I still matter? And that is not laziness. That is a childhood survival pattern. Let me know if this resonates in the comments, because I know that this shows up a lot every week, in fact, within my practice with my clients and members. So let me give you a case example of a client who is a high-performing professional. Her coworkers see her as highly organized, dependable, and incredibly capable. But internally, she feels constantly behind. She stays late at work, and that is even when her tasks are finished. She volunteers for extra projects. She's often praised by her boss, and she says, "Oh, it was nothing. Oh, it's okay, but maybe I could have done this differently. I could have done this better," undermining her efforts. But in therapy, she actually shares something very important. Growing up, she was the emotional caretaker for her mother. Her mother often relied on her for support. So think about it. If she made mistakes or expressed her own needs, her mother became overwhelmed. She often shifted the conversation onto her and about her. "Oh, but I've been doing this," or "I've had it worse." Not necessarily like that, but like, "Oh, but what about me? You have no idea everything that I've been through." So you learn, don't burden people. Be helpful, be perfect. And now as an adult, the same pattern shows up professionally. You see, my client's brain isn't trying to succeed. My client's brain is trying to avoid disappointing people. And that's a very different motivation. Now, how do we rewrite the script? Healing career perfectionism doesn't mean losing your ambition. In fact, what that means is shifting your relationship with performance. Instead of "I must prove my worth," you begin practicing "my worth exists regardless of my performance." That's what I would like you to internalize. And that shift happens through both cognitive and somatic work. So let's talk about a few practical tools that you can put into practice so that we can start rewriting the script and allowing your nervous system and your being to simply exist. Number 1, the good enough experiment. Parentified and adult children of dysfunction brains operate on all or nothing thinking, and that is a cognitive distortion. We think about perfect or failure instead of excellence and room for improvement. But healing often happens through gradual exposure to imperfection. That is why I often emphasize perfect imperfection. So try this experiment right now. Choose one small task this week where you intentionally aim for good enough, not perfection, because that is impossible. Perfection is actually boring. How can you grow? So just complete it and then come back to it and feel proud that what you did was good enough. And notice what thoughts come up. Your brain might say, actually, "This isn't good enough. You must do better." And that is probably your inner critic showing up. But the goal is not perfection. The goal is to tolerate the discomfort of not overperforming. Number 2, somatic downshifting. When your nervous system is used to constant activation, slowing down can feel unsafe. So one helpful somatic exercise that I can offer you is the physiological sigh breathing. So here's how to practice this. Take a slow, deep breath through your nose, expanding your belly. Then take a second small inhale to fully expand your lungs. Then slowly exhale through your mouth. Do this 3 times. Research shows that this pattern helps calm the nervous system quickly. So I would encourage you to put it into practice starting today. You are teaching your body, I don't have to stay in performance mode all the time. That is unfair to you. Even computers need a reset, a restart, a shutting down to function better. Tool number 3, reclaiming your internal authority. Many parentified and adult children of dysfunction unconsciously look outward for validation. Did I do well? Is this good enough? Did you like it? And a powerful practice is asking yourself instead, do I feel aligned with the effort that I gave? Not perfect, but aligned, in alignment with your values. Because the goal is not to meet everyone's expectations. It is to develop internal trust. Now, here is something important to remember. Many parentified and adult children of dysfunction grow into incredibly capable adults. You develop empathy, responsibility, emotional intelligence, problem-solving skills, and the list can go on and on. And you know this. I hope you know this. These are strengths, but healing means keeping the strengths while releasing the survival pressure behind them. You don't have to carry this invisible pressure anymore. Proving your worth through constant performance would only lead to failure and burnout. So if you have ever felt like an imposter at work, despite being competent, highly educated, and despite all of these efforts that you put into your work, there's a good chance that your nervous system is still operating from an old rule. I must earn my place. But healing invites a different truth. You already belong, and you already have the tools within you. Not because of how much you produce, not because you never make mistakes, but because your value was never supposed to depend on perfection or performance. You are just more than good enough as you are. Now, if this video resonated with you, I invite you to check out my Parentification playlist and stay on this channel where we explore these patterns even more deeply, from decision fatigue to emotional overfunctioning, growing up in dysfunctional family dynamics and systems, you name it. I hope that I see you here in the next video, because I would love to hear from you. Please post any comments that you may have or any requests for future topics. I am more than happy to record and provide insight and any support that I'm able to. So thank you for being here. So what does career perfectionism look like for you? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. So let me know in the comments. I will see you in the next video, and please remember your resilience.